How you doing, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we have some breaking MLB news to get into. And the reason why we're going to have this video at the time of recording this past 1 a.m. is because I just finished a video that will be dropping around 10 a.m. later on today for each and every one of you, our Mets fans, at our latest Big Mets Update segment. But halfway through that recording, we found out the Ken Rosenthal bomb, which is that, yes, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is staying put long-term in Toronto, inking a 14-year, $500 million extension. And given the fact that we've spoken endlessly on the potential of Vladdy maybe being a Pete Alonso replacement, should the Mets allow Alonso to walk next offseason, not saying that I'm for it or anything like that, but reiterating the fact that if the Mets were going to allow Alonso to walk, Vladdy would be an exception as to why you would do that. Now that he is off the board, let's further react to this as Mets fans get into all the details about this deal, how it may fare into Pete Alonso's market, and now what to expect with Pete Alonso, as he obviously will be hitting the free agent market next offseason, regardless on if he stays long-term with the Mets or not. Thank you guys kindly for smashing that like and subscribe button as you first chime in, as I'm recording this very late here, and it's actually insane how this video is going to come out before some Blue Jay content creators even have their stuff out, because everyone's been asleep. Not a lot of people were expecting this news, but honestly, if you're following along with Mike DePortez that you see beside me, then you knew that the news was actually coming, and I want to start off this conversation by giving a massive shout out to him. For those that don't know Mike Rodriguez, Mike DePortez here on X, he's been doing a pretty good job over the past couple of years uncovering MLB news and rumors. What we noticed, though, this past offseason is that Mike really swung and missed with the stuff that he relayed out there. And a lot of the stuff that he pushed out there didn't come to fruition. But one thing did come to fruition as of late, and that was having the scoop on the Jurickson Profar suspension news before anybody else, even before Jeff Passan. Then we come to find out a couple days ago on April 4th, he reports during the Mets game while Vladdy's basically taking his at-bat that he is close to an extension long-term with the Toronto Blue Jays. He follows up with a post later on as of this past day, April 6th technically, stating that it's under the firm belief that he will officially be extended by absolute latest, landing back in Toronto for their homestand, which doesn't begin for a week from now until April 14th. But Vladdy, we come to find out just mere hours after that post from Jeff Passan, as well as Ken Rosenthal and everyone else, folks, you guys see it right down there. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays are in agreement on a 14-year, $500 million contract extension pending physical. There are no deferrals. There are nothing of the sort, everybody, and he will be locked up long-term. And the reason why I want to start off this discussion by giving the flowers to Mike DePortez is because, again, just because you haven't gotten everything right with your reporting doesn't mean that you don't have sources. And I really appreciate seeing someone like him being consistent with it and continuing to go out of his way to pump it out regardless on the negative backlash that he faced this past offseason from either talking heads like myself, but to a lesser degree, versus others on X, so we know how they're going to react. The same way I know X is going to have a field day, and that's why I'm not going to go out of my way to delete it. I want Blue Jays fans to enjoy this World Series victory, as I realize it's the closest thing that they'll probably be getting anytime soon. And half joke here, but we just swept you. That always felt good there between the Mets and the Blue Jays for the Mets to kickstart their homestand. But I tweeted this a day ago, mind you, when I was doing my post-game show, or not even post-game, I was doing something and I got a chance to type this out, and I said Vladdy's literally begging to be a Met as he was chopping up with his fellow Dominican friends and Juan Soto, Jose Siri, and Starling Marte. Since then, it got blown up on X. John Heyman had a quote it saying how this is not at all true. Thank you, John. I really appreciate the Captain Obvious here, as if this wasn't a joke to begin with. And Vladdy is the one exception that I've stated going back to the beginning of this past offseason as a guy that would be an exception if you're going to lose out on Alonso. Not that I want to see Pete go. I cannot make that abundantly clear enough. But if push came to shove and Alonso was being stubborn and the Mets wanted to go in a different direction for long-term first space and want to prioritize age and upside, Vladdy checked off better boxes than pretty much anyone else outside of Pete Alonso himself. But now that Alonso is, in fact, the lone man standing between the two as we head into next year's offseason, that's what creates a great discussion that we have to have now. Now that Vladdy inks that deal there that we see at, again, but right around $500 million, 14 years, an AAV of just under $36 million or so. For context, Alonso's making $30 million this year, has an opt-in for the 2026 season, but he's not going to take that, obviously. He's going to opt out, and he's going to look for a big bag, understandably so. So let's get into the pros and cons about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Pete Alonso and how this is automatically going to impact Pete's market. But the big question is, to what degree? Because Alonso being inked on a $30 million deal, basically 1 year deal or so, is important to make note because that's still, again, 5 to 6 years $5 to $6 million less than what Vladdy will be getting in his AAV going forward. But context is important, right? Pete Alonso is at the age of 30. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is north of 4 years younger at the young age of 26 currently. Vladdy is coming off of a tremendous season that we saw this past year with the Toronto Blue Jays, which include the following stat line of 30 home runs, 103 RBIs, a 323 average, a 396 on base percentage, and a 544 slug for 65% better than the average batter in baseball, and a 5.4 WAR. For context, though, Vladdy only has had one other season in his career where he's been above a 4 WAR as a player, and that came in the 2021 season where he was a 6.3 WAR player with 48 home runs, 111 RBIs, and the only reason why he didn't win the whole thing that year, that being the AL MVP, is because Shohei Ohtani had something to say about that, being the unicorn that he is. I remember that run like it was yesterday. I remember him hitting tanks and the home run derby in Colorado like it was yesterday, that being Ohtani and Vladdy and everyone else that took part at the time. But the point is that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at a young age has blossomed big time, and there's a lot of value that goes in hand with him being at the age of 26. This contract is going to lead him to his age 41 season. So for Pete Alonso, what is Pete ideally looking for in a long-term contract after coming off of a season with the Mets with 34 home runs, 88 RBIs, 22% better than the average batter in baseball in a 2.1 WAR? Alonso has never been a 5 WAR player in his career, nor has he ever been a 6 WAR player. Two things that Vladdy's done twice in his career, and Alonso, the closest that he got was in his rookie year with the Juice Baseballs with a 4.7 WAR that we see with the 53 home runs and 120 RBIs. I firmly believe that Alonso is going to have a career year this year offensively on the RBI front. I think he's going to surpass his total of 131 from the 2022 season. Contactability, I think he's going to also hit closer to the 160, 170 range than the 217 and 240 range from the 2023 and 2024 seasons. Alonso has looked as locked in as ever. We've broken it down endlessly on the platform over the past week with his approach, not chasing down away nearly as much, heading for all fields for power as well, a continuation of not only postseason, but spring training. And again, more of that Alonso 2022 plate approach, in which that was the best overall season I feel like we got out of him that wasn't dictated by juice baseballs to a degree in 2019, where pitchers did not know whatsoever how to approach him. Whereas in 2022, he had a 271 average, a 352 on base percentage, and a 518 slug. Alonso is a very valuable player, and he obviously is going to be looking for a long-term contract now of anywhere of 7 to 10 years, looking for at least 30 to 33, pushing north of 35 mil AAV. But in the case of Pete, who's already at the age of 30, it's hard-pressed to believe that the Mets will be willing to go there that long-term on extension for a first baseman. And while Vladdy makes endless sense as to why he's getting that deal, as absurd of an overpay as it is, it's no different of an overpay as Juan Soto, for example. They're all going to be drastic overpays naturally, but you're buying in on the youth and still buying into the prime years that come along with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And in the case of Pete, the big question is, we've already seen him hit tremendous peaks. How much higher can he go? Can he go any higher than what he's done so far in his career? Or is this basically the best we're ever going to get from Alonso, and we're going to get more consistent years out of him, hopefully? But value-wise, as we take a look per Fangraphs, and they do a great job on kind of giving you an idea what a player's value is per season, and Pete Alonso had a value of just under $40 million in his rookie season, 37.6 to be exact, per Fangraphs and how they calculate this. In 2022, he had a value of $30.4 million. In 2023, he had a value of $22.8 million. And in 2024, so far this year, obviously it's a very limited sample size. Pardon me, 2024, it's 16.8 that we saw. And in 2025, he's already worth $3.1 million so far this season alone in just the first week or so of the year. In comparison to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., when we take a look through Fangraphs here, last season was worth $43 million. In 2023, he's worth $10 million. Before that, 26.7. The year before that, $50 million. So there's a lower floor that we've seen in overall value of a player with Vladdy between himself and Alonso. Pete has been the more consistent between the two, but Vladdy has also had the greater highs in total value of a player. Both offensively and defensively, he has been more appealing than what you're getting in Pete. Having said that, I'm hard-pressed to believe that Alonso is now destined to find himself getting an AAV close to Vladdy here at say 35, 36 mil AAV. I just don't see the Mets going down a route like that unless, again, it's more on the shorter term end where there's some opt-outs involved, where there isn't as much of that long-term commitment. And this does not at all have to do with my personal fandom with Pete, because if it came down to personal fandom, I would say ink Alonso to a 100-year contract and make sure that he is never not a New York Met now. Because Vladdy was truly the only exception, in my opinion, to go out of your way to try to seek someone else that was not Pete Alonso long-term at the first base position. Vladdy checked off a lot of boxes for this Mets team and how it would have made sense, but now that he's no longer an option, he's not going to be anytime soon. That's more than fine. Now we have to focus on what's in front of us, and that's the polar bear with the cards in his court. The ball is in his court, I should be saying. Scott Boras is ecstatic to see this. He sees Vladdy ink a $500 million extension. He's going to push for the stars. He's going to shoot for the stars. And yes, it's going to be a problem. Yes, we're going to have the debates as we get in the offseason about, is Scott Boras doing what is right or what's wrong for Alonso? Yes, we're probably going to drop another video on how, again, how things have went throughout the course of the offseason. They dragged on so long, and Scott Boras is a heavy factor as to why. But how we now evaluate heading into the next offseason, Vladdy's off the board, so focus on priority number one on the offensive end has to be Pete Alonso. It will be Pete Alonso. And then secondly, you have to think how creative the Mets will get. Will they consider going after the big boppers like Kyle Tucker, who again will be looking for north of a $500 million contract like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but unlike Vladdy, is as uber athletic of a true talent, a five-tool talent as they come. Can steal bags, can play great corner outfield defense for you, and can tear the cover off the ball like what we've seen so far with the Chicago Cubs. So we'll get into, not only as throughout the course of the year, but more so towards the end of the year, heading into the offseason when we really evaluate things of the players available, who Alonso is stacking up against when looking at first base options. But right now, he finds himself more in a category where he is going to reign supreme. And not only is this a big deal for Pete Alonso on trying to get a closer payday to what he wanted a year ago this past offseason, but now he's going to have more suitors chomping at the bit for his services than he had a year ago too, knowing for certain that Vladdy is off the board. Mets fans, let me know in the comments down below. How do you feel, one, about your initial reaction to the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension news? Are you bummed out to see that happen? Are you more than fine with that happening because you want Pete to be our long-term first base option? And secondly, what type of contract do you expect Alonso to get if he does in fact stay in-house with the Mets? Do you think that the Mets would be willing to go as far as 7+ years on a deal for Alonso next offseason? Or do you think that they will be stubborn enough to defer to someone else, say younger, that has upside via trade like what we talked about? I know fans don't want to hear this, but I'm just mentioning it because it goes in hand with this past offseason, with Spencer Torkelson being thrown out through that. We know a younger option that has upside. Yandy Diaz, a little bit of an older option, but still is a solid player. There are avenues out there, but now with Vladdy off the board, there really isn't anyone else that feels like he makes the most sense for this team at the time of recording this, April 7, 2025, 1:17 a.m. Eastern, than here in the polar bear himself and Pete Alonso. So for all the Vladdy talk that we had, it was fun, but it came and went, is now down the drain, and we're not going to talk about it at all ever again. So don't worry, Mets fans. That is the last of the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. talk here on WardyNYM. Thank you guys again for watching. Let me know all your key takeaways in the comments down below. And before we get out of here, folks, I got to remind you all that later on, technically today, April 7th, 6:45 p.m. Eastern, we're doing our watch party of Mets Marlins. Kodai Singh is towing the rubber. Our second watch party over the past week, where our watch party consists of Mets Marlins with Kodai Singh on the bump. Sandy will not be on the bump for the Marlins because he's on the paternity list, so it'll be someone else. But guys, if you don't know what this is, playback.tv/WardyNYM. Check it out, link down below. You join in for free, and you sign in with your MLB TV subscription, should you have one. That way you can watch the Mets game live in real time with your guy Wardy while listening to the SNY feed too. So you can have GKR on while having my audio levels either higher or lower, whichever you're more comfortable with, as I'm going to be live reacting and sharing some play-by-play with each and every one of you while we watch the game live in real time with our awesome friends at playback.tv, as they're officially partnered with MLB this season, which is how we're making this happen. And it'll be simulcasted on YouTube, so in case you guys are not willing to go the lengths to go to playback because you don't save an MLB TV subscription to actually watch the game along with me for a watch-along, that's okay. It'll be simulcasted on YouTube with a automated scoreboard for you guys to see. That'll also have an ability to show a QR code for you guys to scan periodically. And you scan that, you would be able to automatically join me in playback.tv to sign up, make your account, sign in to your MLB TV account subscription should you have it. It's as easy as that to chime in with me, as we're going to be live reacting throughout the entire course of the game. We might be bringing on a special guest or two, so be on the lookout for that. And I'm going to be interacting with you guys in the live chat here in the playback.tv app, as well as what we have on YouTube per usual as a little simulcast. And then when we're done, we'll do our post-game coverage separately in a separate live show there solely on YouTube. So I'll see you guys later on today. Check out our Big Mets updates video that drops hours after this video is first coming out late night here in the early goings of April 7th. And I'll see you guys all real soon. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.